Hello and welcome back to part 2 of our tutorial for mass importing data into the Nonprofit Success Pack with the data loader. In our first video we covered steps 1 through 3 of our 7 steps to success, and in this part 2 video we'll cover steps 4 through 7. So let's get right to it and begin with step number 4. Step number 4. Using the data loader to insert into the NPSP data imports object. So we already downloaded the data loader. Now we are using the data loader to insert our data into the NPSP data imports object. Before we actually start using the data loader, let's go take a look at the custom object that we're actually going to load our data into. And we're looking for NPSP data imports. So I have mine right here. You might have yours. This drop down arrow. Again, if you can't find it, go over to the app launcher. Scroll down to your objects tabs and look for NPSP data imports. And it just brings you to a recently viewed list. Apparently I recently viewed Mickey Mouse. But this is your custom object that you're going to import all of your data into. So it doesn't really go into your org yet. It doesn't go into your accounts, your contacts, your donations yet. You import all of your data into this custom object and it just sits here waiting. Just sits here waiting for you to do something with it, which we'll talk about in the next step. Once you load your data into it, you can go to this list view to be imported, and you'll see everything that's waiting to be imported. So there's nothing here because we haven't done it yet. If you haven't done this before, or if you haven't ever loaded data into your org before, you probably won't appreciate this object yet, but this is a wonderful, super helpful object. Normally, if you're not using this or the Nonprofit Success Pack, in order to load data into your org and relate things together, like relate accounts to contacts and contacts to donations, you would have to first import your accounts in. By importing your accounts into your org, they get assigned an ID. Each account gets a unique ID. You then export all of those accounts with their unique IDs, then use those IDs to do a VLOOKUP with your contacts in a spreadsheet in order to relate your accounts to contacts, and then re-import all of that info back into your org. And you do that for every object you want to continue making relationships with. So it can be pretty time consuming. This NPSP data imports object does all that for you, which is awesome. So that's why we use this object. So let's go back to our data loader. Just get rid of that. And let's actually run through using the data loader here and putting some of our data from the spreadsheet that we downloaded into that custom object. So we're going to do an insert because we're putting new records into that custom object. So we'll do an insert. And it's going to ask you if you want to put your information right into production or into a sandbox. If you're using a personal developer org like I'm using, then you can put it right into production. So we'll log in. This is for a standard login. If you're using my domain, you would click down here. If you're using a custom domain, and then enter your custom domain in here. It will bring you to a new pop-up using your unique custom domain and enter your password. If you have a security token, you'll need to append that as well. Log in. It's asking me if I want to allow access. Yes. And it just takes a minute and you'll notice the next button show up down here. Alright, now in step 2 of the data loader here, it says select the object. So we need to find the object that we're going to put our data into. So it's called the NPSP data imports. So we're going to look down the list and I see it. So we have NPSP data imports. Make sure not to put it in the NPSP data imports batch. So we've got the object we want to load our data into. Now we need our spreadsheet that we created earlier. It has to be in a CSV file. So I have my file. So click Next. And then it's going to tell us how many records it will contain. It actually will contain more records because we have 2 contacts in some of those records. Alright, and it brings us up to our mapping sheet. So these are all of the column headers in our spreadsheet. So we can create or edit a map. And we're going to do the auto match fields to columns. And it does everything for us. If we had created our own headers that didn't match up with the data loader's headers, we might have had to select these and drag them down to match. But since we already had a pre-made template that had everything done for us, you can see everything matches up perfectly. My column from my spreadsheet header is on the left, and it's going to match up to the API field name in our org. City, city, street, street, everything matches up perfectly. Payment method to payment method. So we don't even need to save the map. We'll click OK. Everything looks fantastic. And we're going to click Next. It's going to ask us where do we want our success and error files saved. I just save them right to my desktop. The success and error files are really helpful. If something doesn't work correctly, you can click on that error file and it'll tell you what you screwed up so you can fix it right away. I've chosen to insert new records. Click Yes to begin. Yes. Alright, so it says 17 were successful. That's good. So we're not going to view the successes or errors. I'm just going to click OK. We'll go to our org. Let's refresh this. Alright, and there are our records. That is all of the data from our spreadsheet in the to be imported list in the NPSP data imports object. And you can see the contacts, accounts. You can click over here on the drop down and click Edit and actually make some further changes to the records before you import them into your org. Maybe you realize that you forgot something. You can scroll down and we can see our first contact. We can see the household information. Our second contact. Account 2 if we needed to add another organization. Our home address, the household address, donation information. We can change anything we like. Add a campaign. I didn't associate it with any campaigns. But we definitely could do that. It's probably something we would do. Click Cancel. So we have all of the records we want to be imported. So let's go to Start Data Import. And it just gives us a little more information, stuff we already kind of talked about. Each record can have 2 contacts and 2 organizations, and home address donation. And we can look down here. These are the number of records we're putting into our org. You'll see here we can start the import process right now. We can do a dry run where we can actually see how things would go according to our matching rules over here. So let's talk about that actually. This brings us to step number 5. And this is where we define our duplicate matching rules. Let's go to Edit. And we can change the batch size. Let's say we were importing tons of records. Or even just, let's say we're importing 1,000 records and the batch size was set at 200 and we had some problems. We can lower the batch size to 50 and hopefully that will help things process better. It might take slightly longer, but hopefully less problems. Here is where we define our contact and account and donation matching rules to make sure that we don't add any duplicates that are already in our org. We can select what we want it to match by. Do we want it to look through the first name, last name, and email only? I like to have it look through the first name, last name, and email. And if it finds a match, then it's not going to put it in there again. For the donation matching, I like to match donations by the amount and the date. You could have a specific description you want to match by. Several other things you can see here. Donation name I also like to see if it's already in the org. I don't want it added again. And the donation matching behavior, only import a record if it doesn't match an existing record. So we'll save that. And again, we could do a dry run now and see if we have any duplicates. So now we're at step number 6, which is importing our data. And for this step, all we have to do is click a button. For the sake of time, I'm just going to begin our data import process. It'll tell you the percentage it's at, how many records were imported, and if any failed. And depending on how much you're importing, it can take a bit of time. But we were hardly importing anything, so it's done already. That's awesome. And you always love to see this. 100%, 17 were imported, and 0 failed. I love to see that 0 failed. So we'll close that. Now let's click on our to be imported, and nothing is in there. And we can click on successfully imported, and we'll show all of our records because they went through perfectly. And you can obviously check what was failed and why, so you can fix it. And so that is that. Now your records will be in your accounts, your contacts, and your donations, and hopefully everything is perfect. Alright, and that leads us to our final step, step number 7, which is just simply checking your data. Import your data. You can just go into your org, type in a few contacts or accounts, and check to make sure that all of the relationships were properly added, the accounts and the contacts and the donations. And after that, you can just check to make sure there weren't any duplicates, and you are good to go. So that is it for this tutorial. Thanks everyone for watching. I hope this was helpful to you. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up. If it was terrible and it didn't help you at all and I'm just rambling, give it the old thumbs down or let me know in the comments what I can improve. So with that, I will say goodbye for now, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.